Hello and welcome to Studio 889. I'm DJ Mo Wilks. May is designated as Mental Health Awareness Month. However, the importance of regular mental health self-check-ins are as important as keeping an eye on your physical health as well. 24/7, 365 in some cases. There are more than plenty of distractions occurring and stressing us out in everyday life. In our everyday lives, including finances, housing security, prices of goods, just to name a few. Lots of students here in the Boston area, student life, of course, the high pressure of classes and grades, etc. I have the pleasure and good fortune of sitting down today with Sonia Erlich, a licensed clinician and wellness instructor practitioner and a mental health counselor who grew up in Boston and has been dedicated to mental health, wellness advocacy for over 2 decades. And so I'm looking forward to our discussion today. We're going to hear about her journey, things she's been working on to assist communities of color in the Boston area, and pick up some helpful tools for our everyday life. So welcome to Studio 889, Sonia Erlich. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Cool,
It's nice to
cool.
be here.
Thank you very much. Please take a second to share something about yourself.
So, as Maurice said, I'm a licensed mental health counselor. That was probably always going to be some part of my journey. I think as a kid, I really noticed how our inner world was just not necessarily tended to in schools, in family systems, in all kinds of systems. And I became very curious about kind of what motivates us, what motivates our decisions, what is on the inside that's driving the way things operate on the outside. And then sort of as I grew and experienced my own struggles with mental health and trauma, and really looked around, and there weren't many people that I felt comfortable with in the field, and I sort of found myself at a loss at many points, and sort of knowing, like, is this world built for me? And am I too much? Are my struggles too much for this world? It really motivated me to be part of building the field, to be responsive to what more people need.
Thank you for sharing that. Was there a lot involved in being a wellness practitioner, instructor for you?
Well, I think my roots really, it was a very iterative journey. Like, I started in youth work, I did wilderness therapy with young people, really just kind of on the ground listening to what's on people's minds, what people are working with, what people's lives are like. And I actually didn't want to become a licensed practitioner for a long time, because I thought, you get into these institutions and then you're further away from people, and you're not right where people need. For a while, I worked for the Boston Public Health Commission, and I was based, as a youth worker, I was based in community centers. I was based in just like in neighborhood spaces, trying to be very accessible. But I reached a limit with that work, and realized that there were some core skills that I wanted to develop for my own healing, but also to offer more skills that we just don't kind of have built into our day-to-day systems. Like, I think schools are doing a lot more around social and emotional wellness. There's many of the Boston Public Schools have established a real commitment to teaching kids how to tend to their that part of themselves. But I think in general we could use more help there, more attention, and so that's why I went on to get a graduate degree and a license.
Well, congratulations. We'll definitely tap into that. How is it working, or how was it working in those types of environments? You mentioned like working in community centers, environments like that. It's not necessarily an unknown thing that, communities of color aren't necessarily the first group you think of when you're talking about embracing things like mental health and mental health counseling. So how would you go about gaining trust?
Yeah, I mean, I think about my first day going to the Holland Community Center in Dorchester, and I had a, kind of charge from above, from my bosses, saying, "Oh, you got to go in there and do anger management." And I said, "Well, I don't know anyone there yet. I don't know anyone there, and I don't know if that's what people want or need, and I certainly don't know if that's what people want or need from me." And what I ended up doing for my first few weeks there was just sweeping, and talking to people at the house, at the community center, watching the swim team, watching basketball games, kind of asking kids like when they do their homework, things like that, just sort of being part of the landscape, and really taking that stance of humility. And I think that's, I think in our current healthcare system, now I work for Boston Medical Center, which is our public safety net hospital,
Yes.
and is hugely committed to providing culturally responsive care to all people, people new to the country, people of all generations, all racial and ethnic groups. But I think, healthcare is designed in such a way that doesn't always feel healing, right? Healthcare sometimes feels like a business.
Right.
And so, when you're a practitioner, when you are in the role of direct care and working with people, you often kind of have to manage that agenda, the agenda of like your healthcare system needing you to be productive and to meet certain measures.
Goals and metrics,
Goals,
yep.
exactly. And then just being face to face with someone,
With the client.
and with a community, and really actually being open and willing to hear what is most needed in that moment, and what's most desired. I think, when you are seeking care, you want to be seeking care from someone who is going to be person and family centered, and be willing to be led by the person who
You want someone's caring, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I answered the question, but I think, taking a deep stance of listening and humility, and being led, of course, not dismissing the expertise that I have been fortunate enough to study and hold, and practice, but always knowing that there has to be an intersection between skills and the person in front of you.
Right.
And those have to come together at a sweet spot.
There are so many things right now, several things that we've gone through in recent history, whether they be, we're just 5 years out of COVID. George
Right.
Floyd, local and national security is a really high concern for a lot of families. Things from your work life, home life, that's a lot. How does someone actually create a self-awareness or know, their threshold when things are affecting their mental health? How do we know?
Yeah, I think for that, just asking yourself that question, that's a beautiful question. How do you know when things feel different to you? For some people, you can look at changes in your physiology. You can look at sort of changes in your heart rate, changes in your sleep, changes in your eating, changes in just, kind of how quickly or how slowly you're moving. Are you hyper aroused or hypo aroused? Are you upregulated or downregulated? Are you sleeping more? Are you feeling more alert, kind of scanning for threats? And then sometimes you can look at your behaviors. Are you shopping more? Are you, kind of needing to fill your time with use of screens, with kind of people can be a form of consumption, or isolating,
So there's certain different patterns that you notice, that things that you do. Like I notice, especially in work situations, things like emails, which, we're going to get them now more than ever. But if you have certain, sounds that are connected to your email that notify you, I've noticed that sometimes that can get me in a certain mood or something like that. And it's something that's harmless. Like, I don't even know what the message is actually conveying, but I can definitely tell that that's a difference that I didn't have maybe 5 or 6 years ago because the number of them have increased.
You mean just that awareness of your own reactions?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think exactly that is like you want to give yourself the space to be kind of a student of yourself, and to bring a lens of curiosity and compassion. I mean, because it's easy for us to say, "Oh, I'm doing this. I did this. I didn't answer my emails today, or I let them pile up, or I said I was gonna have salad with dinner, and instead I just like went all chips." Like you can see these things in yourself, and you can feel judgmental, but really all behavior has meaning. That is one lens that.
I like that. All behavior has meaning.
Yeah.
I remember that. But not to be too hard on yourself if you might deviate just slightly. Like you said, the whole thing about, having a plan of one particular meal might be you deviate and be not necessarily the healthiest. It doesn't mean that you have to have a complete breakdown.
Absolutely.
Somehow you have to moderate that the best way you can. So that goes, I guess, back into the question again, how do you determine that self-awareness?
Yeah.
Be able to, recognize, all right, I'm not necessarily on the same trajectory that I was. Does this mean that my behavior is telling me something, or is it just I just took a day off and maybe eating healthy today, and I'll get on back to that program tomorrow?
Yeah. I mean, I think that I like how you're asking those, because they're questions. Like, you're not trying to arrive at an analysis. It's demonstrating a curiosity about yourself. And I do think that's where all healing starts.
Okay.
That we need to have space to be curious about the things that have happened to us, to believe that there's a path forward, to believe that right now, things are not static, to believe that there's always, there's always something that can shift. I think is really, that in and of itself is an important stance, and there are tools to, there are ways into that stance. I'm not going to jump too far ahead, but we talked about doing some kind of body-based practices, and one of the reasons that I love somatic practices is because there's a quote that says, anxiety operates in the future, depression operates in the past, right? If you think about when you're feeling depressed, a lot of times you're kind of perseverating, stewing over things that have happened. I should have, could have, would have,
right.
When you're anxious, a lot of times it's like, is this going to happen?
Things unknown that you could do, that you're trying to project, or actually, foresee, that you really have no idea. You can only be as prepared as you can be, and if those things transpire, you'll react in different ways that hopefully you're prepared for. Or you'll be able to react and say, I have enough confidence within myself to say, okay, I will meet that particular challenge and I'll figure it out.
I mean, yeah, you already did you just did the whole kind of talking yourself back into the present.
Okay.
Like, I have what I need to meet this moment. But a lot of times when we're anxious, we're thinking about all the things that haven't happened yet. And maybe not even trusting ourselves to just arrive in the moment and be what we need to be. And the body is a place where we can ground in right now, in this present moment, in, separate from, not connected, of course, to what has happened to us, but still we are right here, right now, June 6th, right? We're June 6th today, 2025. Yes, the pandemic did happen. It lives in our hearts and minds and bodies, all of those things. George Floyd, it all lives in us. And we are right here in June 6th, 2025, and we can do something about that. So that's why I do love always coming back to the body when we talk about mental health.
Thank you. Sitting down with Sonia Erlich, licensed practitioner, giving us some strategies. Let's pivot to some of the things like strategies and tactics. You mentioned something about somatic
practices.
Practices. Thank
Yeah,
you
yeah.
for lack of a better word. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. Can you kind of maybe redefine that for like for layman?
Yeah, yeah. So it actually is sort of a Western thing to separate the mind and the body,
Okay.
and it really is in our medicalized model of healthcare. The mind and the body have become two distinct things. So, it has not always been. It's not in every culture, and it's certainly not always been in our history that we see them as so distinct. But so somatic practices are an attempt to kind of rejoin your mind and your body
Together.
together. Exactly. I use words like grounding. A lot of that, some people say earthing, kind of reconnecting to this earth that we live on, this earth that has seen so much human history, that has been steady throughout human history, and really leveraging what we have in the here and now, which is our bodies, to feel some kind of regulation in our nervous systems.
So it's almost like I mean, if I'm oversimplifying, it's almost like you're kind of calming yourself down by that particular practice.
Yeah, yeah, it can be calming. It can be, you can find ways also if you are in what we might call hypoarousal or depression or fatigue or just kind of like a overwhelming like Eeyore from there are ways also to use somatic practices to uplift
To
and to
pick yourself up.
energize. Yeah. So it comes back to that initial question that you had of like, how do I know that I'm dysregulated or that I'm struggling? And some of that is looking at our energy level. So I mean, I could teach you. I'll just share a quick anecdote, which is that there came a point in my life where the way that I had learned how to deal with things was just to do more, do more, do more, and keep adding to my plate. Take another job, see another friend, take that really late night call of someone who is struggling, and then I didn't get any sleep. And I finally kind of got like very, very full up, and I would notice because I would bite off all my nails, I'd be like scratching at my skin. I would really be like, the things that I was internalizing would be manifesting in all kinds of physical ways. And I started to do this very simple grounding technique that I can teach.
Sure, absolutely. Please do.
And I just did it 3 times a day, and it 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 just made the world of difference in how I showed up for myself and for my life.
Okay, you got my interest. I'm very interested to figure out because I know that there are things and times when you've hit upon a lot of things. You'll start to feel a little bit sluggish, a little bit more tired, maybe a little bit more anxious, or a little bit more irritated, or it's something that that is not feeling kind of completely right. So I'm definitely intrigued at what you're about to show me.
So this is an adaptation of something. The sort of basic frame was something that I learned through the Center for Trauma and Embodiment many years ago, and it's called Befriending Your Body. And I've sort of adapted it to be a kind of befriending the now, or coming into the now.
Okay.
So I just ask that you place your feet on the ground. It's super simple. This is, I'm sure many people have, I guess I invite people to sort of feel your own version of this, because I'm sure many of us have one. But so feeling your feet on the ground. If it feels okay to you to draw your eyes closed or just kind of lower your gaze to the earth, just recognizing that even having our eyes open is taking in more input. Like we're taking in data through our eyes when we're seeing things.
Stimulation, yes.
We're stimulated. So just giving our eyes a break and just even seeing what that does to relax the eyes. And then drawing the attention to the feet, connecting the feet to the earth. And really feeling that very primal relationship, feet on earth. And certainly not everyone, but many of us have the gift of connecting feet to earth. to ground, and kind of sourcing strength from that, again, that historical surface, that surface that has seen eons of human and animal history. And then with our attention there, feet on the ground, taking 2 breaths. And drawing the attention up to the belly, the sort of central core, the body, and around to the lower back. Maybe as you bring awareness, this may be the first time all day that we've brought deliberate awareness to the center of the body, the belly and the lower back. Maybe just noticing what's going on there. Are there any sensations, any tension or looseness, hunger, pain? And with this awareness, taking 2 breaths. And as you feel ready, drawing attention up to the top of the head and sort of feeling an invisible string from the top of the head, kind of reaching up towards the sky. Maybe you notice that the back, the spine kind of lengthens as you bring awareness and attention to the top of the head. And taking 2 deep breaths here. And we're going to come back into the room, taking just a moment before we open eyes and kind of, wiggle fingers, relax the body in any way that you need. Just knowing that even these couple of minutes of more internal attention can create some sensitivity. So just seeing if there's any way to be gentle and curious with yourself as you come back into the room. Notice the surroundings, almost noticing as if it's a new and different room, a new and different moment.
Thank you. That was very intense. I mean, very calming at the same time as well.
What's the intense part? I'm so curious.
Well, because you're asking me to focus away from my day in terms of my work day.
Mm-hmm.
You're asking me to focus only on within, just myself, my body, my feet, my back, my stomach, my head, my breathing. And everything else becomes just like non-existent. And it's just literally just myself that I'm actually thinking about, which I might maybe do that around lunchtime if my body tells me I'm hungry, or tells me that, for the back, or like there's a little pain, but it's not me checking in.
Yes. Yeah.
Purposefully. So thank you for that reminder that I can do.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is actually, it sort of highlights the fact that many of us are operating in a certain kind of grind, even if we love what we do, even if we get to do it with our friends and our people, and but there's a reality of working to earn our living, and there's a reality to this grind culture that asks you to be in a million places, and to have your mind sort of your attention focused outward. But
we forget that, okay, there's nothing that says, I mean, that particular exercise you just put us through didn't take a very long time at all. Possibly was less than 5 minutes in
Yeah.
total.
Yeah.
But it gave me a chance to just like, I'm opening my eyes. I feel somewhat more refreshed.
Yeah.
And I actually did something cognitively that I recognized or looked into myself, again, which is in the course of the day, not something that I might take a walk.
Yeah.
If I'm, because I'm literally across from a park.
Yeah.
So that is a motivator. But there are going to be some days that I don't even get to do that. I might be just literally, like you said, just grinding downstairs, trying to get, to what I consider like the reasonable part of the end of the day within the time frame I think I should be able to do it in. So that might have to be a Ford Gold walk. So just a reminder that we can check in with ourselves like that is very valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of us, you were saying like you have this beautiful Boston Commons right in front of you.
Right, but not everybody has that kind of a particular type of experience that they can actually kind of cling to or walk across the street to. But even though I do, I don't always take advantage of it, being able to say, okay, it's 1 o'clock, all right, time for me to take a walk, because life isn't like, unless I purposefully say nothing can block this, that's really not it's not possible.
Right. It's not.
Even if I do set the intention, it's still not possible.
I can't tell you how many times a day I hear from at least someone who says, "Oh my God, I've had to go to the bathroom for like 3 hours," or I've been like so hungry for that, but I've been back to back to back, and even it was one of the opportunities that the pandemic created was a lot of care, a lot of mental health care went virtual.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'm now still seeing people virtually a lot of times, and I'm seeing them from their car on their lunch break, during the work day. And so I guess I name that just to say we're cramming a lot of things in.
But you see that you see that particular virtual as a positive, or like somewhat of a semi-positive in the outgrowth.
I think it's a positive to a point. But I think building in those moments for rest, it's the whole rest is resistance. Like that is an act of resistance to come back to yourself and check in with yourself.
To check in with yourself, to come back to yourself, is an act of resistance.
Yeah.
I like that. Sitting down with Sonia Erlich, I could not help but notice, for reasons I am close to a yoga practitioner,
Yes.
so that exercise that you went through was very yoga in nature. Intentional? Are they borrowing from one another?
Yeah, I mean, I think yoga really, I think the way a lot of us understand yoga in this country is through what are called the asanas, the movements.
Yes.
But all of those are in service of coming back to ourselves.
Okay.
And so it's not surprising to me that there's a similar feel.
Okay.
Because I think that's ultimately the goal of yoga, and is to come to that state where we can be with ourselves. But a lot of times it takes more movement. I mean, for many people, like if you're super wound up and you're very, very anxious, the last thing you want to do is just sit down and breathe.
Be still and breathe,
be still.
yeah.
Like that can make your mind buzz even more. So maybe if you're in that state, what you need is a walk, or a fast walk, or a run, or a dance break in your office, or in your kitchen, or wherever you are. All of those practices, though, are in service of just coming back to this moment.
I wouldn't look too bad if I was dancing here, because it's a radio station, so it would kind of blend in with the fact that we have music, so it wouldn't be so. But the definite sitting down and just doing what you did, or just coming to, I mean, we're lucky and fortunate to have a lot of quiet studios. So doing something like this in a studio like this would be beneficial. I'm going to definitely try that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. So it's called a somatic practice.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe, I don't know if this is a moment to like acknowledge some of the, like the BIPOC
Absolutely,
practitioners
please
in this.
do.
So Christine Rose, incredible woman, massage therapist, owns Amani Massage. Um, uh, she's a Cape Verdean woman from Boston.
And she had a yoga studio over by Four Corners. At Four Corners Yoga. She used to be
Yeah,
part of that.
she used to own, yes, Four Corners Yoga in Dorchester. It has been taken over by a woman named Lisa, who now runs through Four Corners. All of their offerings currently are either virtual or pop up, but they'll do things like since the pandemic, since 2025. They've had hosted a group called Candid Conversations, and so that is a space where people read books together, and it's a multiracial space where people really try to get through in a deep and authentic way some of the pains that have occurred cross-racially, and they've been going strong since 2025. Even once they no longer had a physical space, people just kept going with that. So it's clearly serving a need. They offer meditation. They offer yoga virtually. They offer other wellness opportunities, birth doulaing, death doulaing. So I do encourage going to their website and sort of following their offerings.
And what is the website again?
Four Corners Yoga and Wellness. And again, their pop-ups tend to be in the Dorchester area, sometimes in Jamaica Plain, but they're a really great resource. Also, Pure Spark. Naisha Deeds is the founder of Pure Spark, and that is a kind of a hub of BIPOC practitioners. So you can go on and look for, do I want to see someone who does acupuncture? And you can look through a sort of directory
And the catalog of different people doing stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that
exactly.
definitely answers the question if people want more. Well, I mean, I'll ask it anyway.
Yeah.
So those would be the places you would start at as far as if you're looking for more assistance with to turn to mental health questions. Is that where you would start, or are there other places you should start?
I mean, I think I like the resource. I think there's a like an app and a website, Therapy for Black Girls. I think that's a really great resource, and that's not based in Boston.
Okay.
That's for anyone
Nationwide.
nationwide. Yeah. I do still think that like some of the like old school resources like NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, is a really good place to go, both for people experiencing mental health struggles and also people who their loved ones. So there's supports for the individual and those surrounding them. I guess another thing that I would love to uplift, this kind of goes in the direction of like, we as individuals do not bear the onus of doing all the healing. Like we need each other. We need communities. We need institutions that have done harm to take responsibility for the harm that they've done. But I think group spaces are really, really, therapeutic groups or groups that are intentionally designed to be healing are really important.
I totally agree with that. I mean, when I was a caregiver for a relative, an older relative of mine, it was hard because of the dynamic of somebody who took care of me. Now I'm taking care of them, but having a group session with other people who are at different stages of that care with their own loved ones, at least gave me a chance to see the journey. And just being in that kind of group setting made me feel like I had a community of people, that are going through this in terms of life stage. So that is, I definitely just wanted to say that that's invaluable.
Yeah, yeah, and there, I think a lot of people, we The Surgeon General a couple years ago said that we are in an epidemic of loneliness, and that in fact loneliness is more dangerous than smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. That was
Wow.
the health outcomes for like chronic loneliness and isolation are really, really poor. And a lot of that is certainly capitalism is disruptive to relationships. We know that this grind culture, like how often do you get to the end of your workday and you're like, I would love to call that person and I just have to
Right, yeah, you have
collapse,
nothing
you
left
know?
in it. But and also, I mean, just the new technology that's literally in our hands that we've become somewhat, connected to, perhaps to an obsessive
Yeah,
level,
yeah,
that we don't necessarily know. Okay, as I'm old enough to remember, obviously, a time when we didn't have it,
yep,
so I can always kind of like once again be within my conscience of say put it down because I know what putting it down is like.
yes,
But you have this whole technology culture that has been born into knowing nothing but phone apps and phone technology. So they don't know a time of putting it
no,
down. They don't know a time of maybe now it's time for a walk. Unless they put it into their phone or their app.
exactly, yeah. And I think too when you haven't necessarily had the experience of deeply nourishing
Right.
connections, or in fact, maybe even to go a little further, maybe you've experienced a lot of interpersonal harm or trauma that you haven't received support from, that you haven't fully processed. We can turn the phones can seem like the safest place, right?
Makes sense.
And there were all these years right during the pandemic where we were literally being told it's not safe to be around each other.
So you have no
So
other choice but to be close to the only thing that you can be, which is your technology,
yeah,
which is either your Zoom or or whatever that's on your phone that can connect you, maybe a WhatsApp or something like that. So I'm not putting it down completely in terms of
yeah,
I understand that in some ways it can definitely help somebody, but at the same time I also understand that too much of something,
yes,
any kind of I'm always an advocate of moderation.
absolutely.
Were
And
there no? Please continue if you had another thought.
well, yeah, I was just gonna say like we actually need to retrain ourselves to be together
Okay.
in ways that are healthy and healing and nourishing, and I think that is the best way to mediate like that desire to just pull out the phone and separate and isolate.
Right.
And so, that does mean looking towards the community spaces that you maybe loved before, that you got something from before, and seeking out new. I mean, I am a big proponent of your dance parties. Maurice does these mercifully early dance parties, like for those of us with little kids, like
Yeah.
they're usually, like 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. or something. But it's just a beautiful way to be in community space where people are respectful, people honor each other's autonomy and boundaries and desire to be free and heal and expressive. So that's a beautiful gift that you've given
Thank you.
to many people, and they're free.
That's true.
There's, I think looking to your spiritual institutions, looking, yeah, like to the things. I love going to see the messaging boards at the libraries. Or even like the ice cream shops, a lot of times
Yeah.
there's like, oh, this book series or the book club,
Yep.
or people, increasingly I'm seeing people running groups, support groups. There are lots of virtual groups. Most people know about Alcoholics Anonymous, but if you think about anything you might be dealing with, there may be
A
that
group for it.
anonymous group.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a Depressives Anonymous.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you're depressed, it can be hard to motivate to get out of your house and
To
to
even
go.
to tell your own personal people that are in your circle that are along, but maybe like you'll feel more comfortable in a group of people where you don't necessarily share your name, similar to AA.
Yeah,
Interesting. I didn't
yeah,
know that.
yeah, yeah. One thing, just for this is kind of for organizations, just an opportunity that I just learned about today through the Mass Strong initiative. They are wanting to dole out money to organizations that want to train their staff on how to kind of hold peer support spaces, and this is really a way for communities to take mental health back into their own hands, and to say, like, we don't have to outsource our mental health to just healthcare practitioners or hospitals, or but to say, like, we can look towards each other. We need each other, and maybe there's some skill building we can do to kind of share space safely and constructively together. So that's another opportunity through the Mass Strong initiative.
Mass Strong.
Yeah.
Are they nonprofit?
They are nonprofit. The sort of the group that is through which you can apply is the group Peer Support, and they are based in Massachusetts. But yeah, statewide, they want to support organizations.
And lastly, you're connected to a men's mental health awareness that's, I guess, running through from June 7th, which will be, through July 7th, and that's at the Codman Square Health Center?
Yeah, so I'm not directly involved,
Okay.
but I think it's one of the offerings through Four Corners, and I think it's being held at the Great Hall at Codman Square Health Center. Another opportunity for men's health, because this is often, men, and particularly Black men, get very isolated from healthcare systems in this country, and we need you. So we need you to be here.
No, I
So,
mean, well, yeah, I totally, I definitely understand that, definitely advocate that as well. I definitely understand that, hospitals in general, health facilities in general, aren't necessarily where we would probably go to first.
Right.
I think just recently, men's health has been focused on group kind of like, strategies, whether it's, Black Men Run, that I know that happens through the city of Boston. I know that's like there's chapters all over the country, but that's just a recent phenomenon that I've seen that I like, at least, and it's a varying abilities. You don't necessarily have to be like, this sprinter. You can run at your pace. But yes, I think organizations or collectives like this, men's mental health awareness, is something that, people should, men should think about.
Yeah. The Mandela Yoga Project, that's run by Jeffrey Thomas,
Okay.
is also a resource for men's health. And,
Okay.
they have sort of a curriculum for men to run groups together, a wellness curriculum.
Nice.
Particularly geared towards BIPOC men. And I understand. I mean, I think that is what you're saying is true, that healthcare spaces have alienated for so long.
Yeah.
Healthcare, mental health care was not designed with everyone in mind.
Yeah, and it's barely talked about in most male spaces to begin with.
Yeah, and people of color get misdiagnosed.
Yes. There's definitely a history of mistreatment, experimental treatment, for nefarious purposes.
The Tuskegee experiment.
So so there's definitely going to be a trepidation before kind of like jumping into things that say, oh yeah, we're here to help you.
Yes.
You're going to definitely be looking at something with a side eye and say, well, all right, so we'll prove it to me. What evidence can you show and share with me that this is in my best interest, especially if I don't see anybody else kind of gravitating towards it.
Absolutely. And I do think that, again, I think the onus is on the institutions and the individuals within those to recognize the harms that have been done, and to be earning the trust, to say, that's my job. A big part of my job is to earn your trust. And that, I do have sort of a hope and faith in our federally qualified health centers, and their ability to kind of be responsive to the populations that they are charged with serving, because they are usually embedded in communities.
And while talking about those health centers, and we'll definitely wrap things up, one of the things when I actually sought mental support, I was looking for BIPOC, mental health, practitioners. I don't know if it has gotten better since I was first looking, decades ago. have there been an increase in terms of recruitment for people of color to be able to get into the field?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that
And you
in
might not
my
necessarily know the answer, so if you don't, that's totally cool.
well, I can speak to I work at Boston Medical Center, and my organization does partner with a lot of community health centers, and so I have the vantage point of like community health centers in Massachusetts who are already kind of committed to a health equity mission. And I'm not saying that's everywhere. I'm just saying that those are the relationships that I have. So that's where I'm coming from. But I think there's an increased investment in the community health worker role, which is it's designed to be a person in the healthcare system who is often of and from the community, often who
Understands the needs of.
languages, yeah, and is more direct to be culturally responsive and tuned into like specific needs of that community. I think investment in that role is a shift in health. I also think, been increasing scholarship for folks who want to get into the mental care field and pursue, graduate education and training. And that is another that I'm seeing in the field. It's not happening fast.
It's setting in a direction that actually will, people would like to see and have representation that matters for them to feel that sense of trust will assist in trust as well.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing that I could acknowledge on that sort of in the culture of the field is that, the old model of mental health was really, when you'd see it in shows or movies, it would be like a exactly, it's like a mahogany room, leather or chairs, usually a white man, and someone laying on the couch, and the older white man, he was good, he was an expert, he had no self, the sick person, that sort of expert patient model. And I think what's happening in the field, I'm very close to the graduate education curriculum places that I'm part of. There's much more emphasis self-reflection in practice. So the biases, what life experiences, what are the life experiences that I'm bringing scenario, and what are the assumptions that I have about it's like the way to parent or to heal. So there's more emphasis on looking at yourself and kind of the collaboration, I guess, and sort of dismantling those expectation goals. So that's something that I see that's very encouraging.
That's positive. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you stopping by Studio 889. I do believe personally we need to take all the opportunities we can, as you mentioned, or have to break cycles, seeking safe relationships, tend to our interpersonal relationships. That's a basic act of self-care. Just daily exercise, walking, but as you showed me, this particular grounding exercise is definitely something I need to incorporate into my routine as well. Being a friend to yourself, you talked about befriending yourself. Well, being a friend to yourself is probably number one, because if I'm not available for those other things and those million tasks I'm trying to be there for, I'm not going to be any good. Any good service, totally. So, as the saying goes, you cannot be of help to someone if you're not helping yourself first. So, I'm going to take a second to just breathe. It's primal. It's necessary. It's what I'm going to do. And I just wanted to say thank you for just reminding our audience of that. So, welcome back to Studio 889 to give us some more updates if there are any things that you've actually learned. So, but just thank you very much for just giving us a couple minutes today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right. So for Studio 889, I'm DJ Mo Wilks. Thanks to JB for manning the camera today, and we're out.